All right, the Hangout on air is live. Here we go, gentlemen, for TWiP 460. And welcome back to another episode of TWiP. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson, here with me to discuss a few of the interesting stories affecting photographers this week. I'm joined by a new face to the This Week in Photo network and host rotation. That's Mr. Chris Berry. You may have seen him on TWiP Talks, and now he's made his way into TWiP proper. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks, Frederick. Good to see you.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on again.
For sure. Yeah.
All right, and also from Joseph Lanaschke, Photo Joseph, the Batcave up north. It is a Batcave up there, dude, Joseph. You know you are building the Batcave.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the truth.
Yeah, the video, which makes this show, Joseph, like particularly suited to you and your expertise, right? You've seen the show notes, so there's some things in here that I think that probably have you drooling and leaving puddles around the Batcave, right?
I'm not sure how to interpret that, but sure.
like Archer would say, phrasing. All right, guys, let's jump into the show. This is going to be a really good show. Joseph, by the way, I just want to let folks know your URL is photoappsexpert.com, right? So
well, it's not photoapps.expert, but that'll work too.
They put Photo Apps Expert. You use URLs. All right, so we'll put all that in the show notes, so people should check it out. Before we go in, so the Photo Apps Expert site, what is it for? What's the main goal?
The Photo Apps Expert is the rebirth of what used to be Aperture Expert, which was at the time the world's #1 resource for Aperture users. Given that Aperture is no longer with us, we
It's still here, hanging on.
Oh, barely. This site has evolved into photoapps.expert, which is basically a resource for all photo-related apps. So if there's an app that's got the photo attached to it one way or another, we talk about it on there. It can be desktop or mobile, Windows, iOS, Mac, whatever platform, Android, whatever platform you got. We will cover it. We will talk about it.
Awesome. And you're working on something else too, right? You want to give a little teaser, foreshadowing, reveal?
Foreshadowing, a little TWiP, little extra TWiP action here.
Yeah, just the TWiP, Joseph. Just the TWiP.
Just the TWiP. Frederick, behave yourself.
I just got back from Mexico.
Just got back from vacation.
I'm still in inappropriate mode.
You tried to tell us you were working, but I never believed that. I don't think you actually were. That's my theory.
Well,
Yeah, so we are about to launch the TWiP Apps show, a whole new podcast on this network called TWiP Apps. We have recorded 3 episodes. We're actually recording a 4th one today, and we'll get those first 3 into the queue for launch, which, if all goes to schedule, will be probably a day after listeners are getting this for the first time.
Yeah, it's going to rock. I'm really, really looking forward to that show. I think it's going to serve a kind of it's almost like Apple. You know how Apple launches products that we didn't know we needed until we get them, and then we don't know how we live without them? I think that your show is like that, because it's like, I keep saying this, we need curation. I look at my phone, and it's just littered with all these different things, and, I'm like, it's depressing whenever I look at it. So every now and then I go through this, app bankruptcy, and I just purge everything off of it and start doing new ones. It would be great to have someone that told me the good stuff to buy or try or anything. So
yeah, that's pretty much what this is. I mean, the whole idea behind the show is that every episode focuses on one app, and it's not me giving a demo of the app. It's me interviewing the developer or some representative from the company. So we are talking to the company themselves, and we're discussing the app. We talk about it, and then we get a demo from them. And so I can talk over their demo, interrupt them, and ask the hard questions. Does it really do this? How does this work? And make sure that we're getting the demo that I want to see is hopefully what you guys want to see.
That's awesome.
I love it. Hey, I have a request, Joseph. I have a request. Mylio, I would like to have you. Yeah, I would like you to go tackle that one and tell us if we should reconsider it now. Because I remember they launched like a year or so ago, and then kind of lost some altitude, and now I'm seeing updates that they've fixed and changed a bunch of the things that I was griping about back then, and I think it may be a viable solution again. So
it's a great solution. There's no question about it. I actually use it now myself. So for my personal stuff. So I'm using Lightroom for my professional work and Mylio for my personal family photos and just that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm loving it. It definitely needed some. I started with it and dropped it. Maybe 6 months or a year later, came back to it again, saw that it was really close to what I wanted, and the good thing about having the site that I have is I have a voice, and I've been able to get the developers at Mylio to add the 2 features that were killing me. One of them is already in the app, and the other one they've confirmed they've got it working, and we're just waiting for it to get released on the App Store.
Thank you, Joseph, the voice of the people. Welcome.
Yeah, we will absolutely get them on. I've already talked to them about getting them on. We don't have them scheduled, but they will be on the show without question.
All right. Well, speaking of people that have been on the show, Lytro is our first story. So way back when, I think before. How's that for a segue, by the way? Wasn't that smooth? I got to shine a light on that segue, which now makes it not a segue anymore. But Lytro, the folks came on the show before they launched the first Lytro camera. Remember the little rectangular tube or square oblong tube? Before they launched that, we talked to them about their light field technology, and they were at the time going. They were going to revolutionize the consumer space for photography with the shoot now, focus later, all that cool jazz. And then they launched the Lytro Illume, which was a slightly upper scale version of that camera, more targeted at advanced amateurs and pro shooters, which had the same kind of light field technology in it. Again, shoot once and focus and pick your focus point later. So during those conversations, as I recall, I think I brought up the idea of video. And how this, and people on the show and people in the audience commented on, wow, that's a great technology, but wouldn't it be great if you could apply that to video so I could shoot video and then pick my focus point later? Well, fast forward to today, and Lytro has announced a couple days ago their 755 megapixel cinema light field camera, which, looking at the videos on their site, which we all know, are the best foot forward. It's kind of the first date videos, but they look amazing. So, Chris, I want to throw it to you first. You've probably you've looked at these videos.
Yeah.
You've looked at this.
Oh, yeah.
First, let me preface this with looking at this. Is they're targeting their new technologies as cinema and broadcast. So they're probably not for us. They may be for Joseph, but they're not for like normal folks that run and gun and shoot and use consumer devices. But when you saw this, what did you think? From a consumer standpoint, was this like,
it was intimidating. It was intimidating because I see how awesome it would be if I had a team of people who were dedicated to thinking of a scene or an idea from the end result, and then kind of reverse engineering it, and then just shooting it and doing a lot of stuff in post, which just isn't what I do, period. I try and do as much as I can in camera no matter what. With I don't spend a lot of time in Lightroom and such. So seeing what it can do was intimidating. It's like, okay, I can see how awesome this is, but I can also see that it's probably not for me. But I just kept thinking about the horsepower it's going to take to deal with the files, and then I started hearing about a whole system about post-processing and cloud and all these types of things, and it blew my mind. It totally blew my mind.
Mine too. I was looking at it, and it's funny you say that because you're a Fuji shooter, as we've talked about on the other TWiP Talks episode, and you're a street photographer. And like Valerie, who hosts Street Focus, I don't know if all street photographers like this, but you guys seem to be purists in terms of I got to get it in the camera. And then you switch over to somebody like me, who's not a street photographer, and I look at when I go out and shoot like. I'm gathering raw materials for what will soon be synthesized into something awesome.
Yeah.
So Joseph, now, okay, you like I said, you're building the Batcave over there, and some of the technology that they put in this light field camera, particularly the green screen on everything in the scene, as a possibility. Does this excite you, or is it is it too out of reach?
Well, I mean, it's certainly too out of reach for anything I would do. I don't think I even saw a price, but given what requirements go along with the camera as far as gathering the footage, gathering the data, what does it say? It captures 400 gigabytes per second of footage.
That's nuts.
I can't even get my brain around how much data that is.
It's phenomenal. So obviously this isn't the kind of thing that, well, I don't think probably almost nobody will own this. This is going to be the kind of thing that people will lease for a shoot.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the next Avatar kind of thing, use it for something like that. But it's obviously this is not designed for your average consumer. But what's exciting to me, okay, so we saw Lytro kind of basically they came out with the Ilum or Ilum, whichever it was, and didn't do well. Unfortunately, the camera basically shuttered, and I thought they were basically gone, but clearly they weren't. I think this is an example of what you can do when you say, I don't care what it costs. I'm just going to build the best technology possible. And there's no question this is unbelievable technology, what they've done. Now, okay, like you, I've only seen a demo, and a lot of skepticism bouncing around Facebook on it. The only reason that I would not discard it out of hand is one of the people in the primary video, Ted Shilowitz, is a friend of mine, and I know this guy, I know his history, and if he's on there saying this thing is awesome, then there's something to that. So I'm looking forward to seeing it at NAB next week. I'm definitely going to go check it out. But it's an interesting take on what can be done. And if it's nothing more than a technology demo, it's a hell of a technology demo.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and that's what I wrote in my notes here. I wrote technology demo and perhaps even a consumer preview, because these things start high. Like look at Red, right? Red started with these cameras that no one could afford, and then slowly but surely they trickled down into cameras that a few people could afford. So they're still expensive, but they're amazing and they're within reach, so to speak, right?
Well, even using 4K, Red started is I believe 4K was the first thing that Red was doing, and that was at the time that was mind-numbing. 4K, are you kidding me? HD was just becoming popular, and Red's working on 4K. What is that? Why would you wait? What? Now step forward to today, and 4K is in a lot of cameras that you buy. A lot of small cameras for well under $1,000 you can get and shoot 4K video. So 4K is like whatever now. Of course,
your phone, right?
5 and 6 and 8K now. So that's up there. And now these guys this thing calls it 40K resolution. Now I will point out that I remember with the Ilum they talked about all this resolution that's there, and they're kind of calculating three-dimensional space resolution. It's not like it's 20,000 pixels by 20,000 pixels. That's not what this is. It's a three-dimensional space calculation. So this 40K resolution doesn't mean you're going to make a print that's a mile wide. It's something different than that. But,
yeah, I mean you could look at it as, if you switch your brain into three-dimensional mode, it could be 4K on this plane, and then the next plane that's another 4K, then the next plane going back into three-dimensional space. You compute all those together, and then that gives you 40K. But yeah, you're right at that. 300 frames per second is crazy, and 400 gigabytes a second, which means, like Chris was saying, there's that sidecar little R2D2 server that comes with this thing.
It sounds like a nightmare, and it sounds like you'd be throwing out a ton of data, because if you take that pool table scenario where they're kind of slowing down the cue ball and such, it sounds like you would shoot a scene with a certain idea, and you would only manipulate a small part of that scene, and then you would throw the rest out. So you maybe would collect, and throw away maybe 90% of the data, unless it's for that one scene.
Depending on the scene, but also it could be. I mean, there's my brain is like spinning with all the possibilities that could happen from this, because and from a business standpoint, I was thinking the complexity of this system makes me think that it's going to have to come with a consultant. Because it's like
trainer.
Right? Those are like, it's going to have to come with somebody and say, okay, hey, because a director or a new photographer, they don't have a whole lot of time to be on set messing around with R2D2 and getting it to connect to this brand new kind of camera and making sure that it is actually writing, 400 gigabytes to this, all this stuff. You need somebody to babysit that. So maybe that's going to be part of their overall package.
I mean, if Lytro is listening like they did last time, and they thought about video after they heard your show, maybe they could have like a team of people who do post processing for for clients and such. Like you can send out a batch of prints, and you can have someone do retouching. It would be like retouching on steroids, but for this camera.
Yeah, yeah, but they say that things that you can change later are depth of field, focus position, shutter speed, or dynamic range can take place after the fact thanks to their, dynamic data. And just for the folks that don't know, their light field, I'm going to do a horrible job at explaining it, but light field technology is kind of like if you remember ray tracing from 3D rendering, where you are measuring the path of each ray of light, or in some cases each photon, and how it bounces off surfaces and where it travels within the scene, thereby giving you and if you do that a gazillion times and measure each one of those rays, you can do things, for example, in 3D, you can say, okay, that ball over there is made of this. And when a photon hits it, it'll either scatter or be absorbed or reflect or whatever. So you can then say that that ball is chrome or that ball is made of plastic or whatever. This light field technology does a similar thing where it's measuring the light traveling within the scene for every single frame at 300 frames per second,
Wow.
and that's where all that processing speed comes in.
So it's a gnarly amount of information.
Yeah, I mean, it's brain like it's science fiction. What the processing power that's going on there to measure that, and then after the fact, that allows you to then step back into the scene and then look around and make changes after the fact because you have a mountain of data to recreate. It's almost like your brain to recreate that scene.
It sounds like a functional magnetic resonance image or something like that.
Yeah.
Like some type of functional MRI. So if I recall correctly, because I was looking at the Illum a while ago, but I was like, nah, I think this is a little bit too much. And then I wound up seeing it at Burning Man, which is a thing I do a lot, talk about too much. But it was just, I got a chance to mess with it. It was just slow. The guy was confused. Like he didn't know, how to get the results out of it. They were late getting it to him. There was a huge demand for it. But it sounds like that idea of measuring everything you can possibly measure and then kind of taking away what you want from it. I think it's incredible. Sounds incredible.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff about this. And then I was thinking as I was reading this, because I'm on this, Joseph, I go on these tangents and this techno lust, spirit journeys every now and then. And my latest techno lust spirit journey has been learning about 3D and VR and all this cool stuff. So I'm reading about this new Lytro Cinema. And I'm like, oh man, what if they applied that technology to VR? Right? So then I go to their page, and the next tab over is Lytro Immerge. Did you guys see that?
No.
On the Lytro page, they've created this new device. They call it the world's first professional light field solution for cinematic VR, providing lifelike presence for live-action VR through 6 degrees of freedom. And the thing looks like something that fell off a spaceship or something. And, I watched the video and all this, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. So they're applying light field technology to VR. Now imagine, so we were just talking about, okay, all the processing power that it takes to capture the data in a field of view in front of you, in the rectangle. Now imagine capturing 360 degrees of resolution in real time, in high resolution, allowing you to look around in that, and move through it. That's science fiction. I think that's really science fiction.
Wow, it's like a holodeck.
It's exactly like a holodeck. It's a holodeck capture, not an emitter. Joseph, what did you think about this? So you're looking at it now. I see you.
I hadn't seen the Immerge yet. That's I haven't watched their video. There's not a whole lot on here except fill out a form to get more info. And do you have an idea for a production? But yeah, hey, they're coming up with some cool ideas. That is for sure. One thing I wanted to mention on the cinema camera. If you go to their website and there's a fill out for more information. And they ask you about your next production and what your budget is. And the first option is under $10 million.
That's me, so maybe I qualify.
When you fill it out, if you click the under 10 million and hit submit, that immediately goes into the reject pile. And the next options are 10 to 25, 26 to 50, and 50 million. So if you click over 50 million,
Bravo. Good for them. Good for them.
Boom.
So then that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Joseph. The next thing in my notes was, is Lytro now, have they abandoned the whole consumer space, because you look way to the right, there's Lytro Imaging and there's the Illum and all that stuff. Front and center is Lytro Cinema and Lytro Immerge. Is this, yeah? And I would applaud them if this was the direction that they're going in, saying that that consumer stuff was a demonstration of the technology. It generated enough revenue to allow us to build this real stuff, which is our real goal, so that we can charge these kind of crazy high numbers instead of, bottom feeding for the consumers and fighting with Panasonic and Sony and all those guys. We're out of that. Now we're in the stratosphere. Joseph, do you think, is that the new Lytro? The new Lytro is now pro-focus?
Logical. That seems logical because the consumer/pro grade still camera has never really caught on. And I don't want to talk ill of the company, but I would think that a lot of that had to do with how it was marketed. I think that they went after the wrong market and wrong approach to selling the camera. People never got it, and a lot of the press was, as we've even said on the show, what's the point of focusing later? Can't you get it right the first time? Is it really worth the risk of losing all the resolution that you lose so that you can just choose your focus point later? Right. And there's a lot of possibilities with that camera. I don't know if you remember, but back before it was launched, Lytro actually hired me to go shoot with the camera, and I had a prototype, a 3D printed prototype that I took to Hong Kong and did a bunch of images for them. And when I came back, they ended up not using any of it because it wasn't telling the story they wanted to tell, something that was not communicated to me before I left, obviously. And they told me what the story they wanted to tell, and I disagreed. I'm like, that's not what, I'm a professional photographer. I'm your target market, and the story you're telling me doesn't interest me. The story that I'm telling interests me, but
Yeah, well, hey, it's an indication. So maybe that, I don't know, who knows? We're armchair quarterbacking, but I agree, because I think I went on, what was it? I think it was Tech TV around when it came out, and they did like this thing where they gave me a Lytro and like 4 or 5 other people a Lytro, and we went out on the streets of San Francisco to use them, and they followed us around with a camera crew and all that. And I think my opinion after it was, yeah, it seems cool, but I would probably never ever use it. Why would I use it? And I think I may have even said something like, it felt like a cure in search of its disease, because I didn't feel like it's like they built this awesome cure, but what are you curing? Because I know how to focus, and my Lumix cameras focus really fast, and yeah. So
but you nailed it though, right?
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you nailed it right there, because your question was, who are they building this product for? They've generated ideas and excitement about it. And then they go way upscale. So they built a cure, and the disease will come at a later date.
Yeah, and then to the company's defense, that's technology. You build these things, like we said at the beginning. You build these things, and then people find a cool new thing or a cool new way to express themselves with this new tool that wasn't possible before. That's called high tech, and leading edge stuff. These new cameras that they're coming out with, the Lytro Cinema and the Lytro Immerge, they look fantastic. The Lytro Cinema makes me salivate, but again, I'm like, I'd love to play around with it, but Chris, like you're saying, I don't know if today I would find a use for it. The Lytro Immerge looks really, really interesting because of the direction that all this 3D stuff is going, and this VR stuff, especially, one of the stories we're going to talk about in a minute is Facebook, and they're doubling down on this VR stuff. It doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to be one of those technologies where, okay, you better get on board now because the train is leaving the station. Yep. There's going to be box cars, later on that you could probably hop onto, but if you want to be in the front, get on the train now. That's what my friend Trey Ratcliffe does. Trey Ratcliffe, whenever something new kind of pokes its head above the ocean, he's on it. He's on it. Like yesterday, he's posting about, hey, I'm streaming live from my drone to Facebook now, and they just launched the thing. So I don't know. So, Joseph, speaking of new cameras, and this is a segue into our next story, you and I both shoot Lumix. Chris, sorry, you shoot Fuji. We won't hold that against you. It's okay. It's okay. We love Fuji here on This Week in Photo. Some of my best friends shoot Fuji. It sounds so condescending. Stop. But Joseph and I shoot Lumix. Lumix is a Micro Four Thirds system. And Joseph, you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago as we were planning the TWiP app show, and you revealed that you were working on something that you couldn't talk about, but you were really excited about it. Tell us what you were working on now, because I know whatever it was launched last week, right?
It did, and my plan is to show it to you, but for some reason one of my systems just completely shut down on me, so I'm going to try and do a rescue reboot here and see what happens.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead. So while you're trying to do the rescue reboot, I'll talk over
I
it.
can't control my switching for some reason. Anyway, yeah. So it's a brand new camera,
Yeah.
and well, where do you want me to start? Should I start with what I was doing, or should I start with the device itself?
We'll start with the camera and then work backwards from there.
Okay, cool. So the camera is the GX85, as it'll be known in the U.S., and GX80 in Europe. And surprisingly, I didn't even know this. It's being called the GX7 Mark II in Japan.
Okay.
No idea. But anyway, so it's a GX. If you're listening to this in the U.S., it's GX85. In Europe, it's GX80. And what it is the way I would describe it is the baby brother to the GX8, which is the new flagship still photographer's camera.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. And it is a smaller baby version of that camera with almost all the same features, minus the new sensor. It's got the traditional 16 megapixel sensor, and minus the weatherproofing, and minus one thing that we really like, which is the anti-aliasing filter. There's no anti-aliasing filter on the sensor, which makes your images sharper, considerably sharper. It's a phenomenally sharp camera to work with. And the only disadvantage of not having the anti-aliasing is you can pick up moire where you wouldn't before. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice trade-off to have, and one that I'm welcome to have, because moire isn't something that I really often have to worry about. So it's a beautiful piece of kit. It's very small and lightweight. It's targeted at the street photographer and travel photographer. And so if you want a full-featured, fully capable Micro Four Thirds camera that shoots 4K, autofocuses like nothing you've seen, and has built-in stabilization in both the lens and the sensor working together, so the dual stabilization, then this is definitely the camera to look at. It is pretty beautiful.
So I have a couple Lumix cameras. I have right now my favorite camera that I've been taking all over the place with me, and it's performed like a monster, is that GX8. I love the GX8. And I have a G7 as well. So where does this fit in? Is this a camera that's for a new Lumix purchaser, or does it fit in?
Absolutely could be. So if this, it could be a great first Lumix camera. If you are, it was kind of funny. We talk about, it's smaller and lighter. So if that GX8 and GH4 are too big to carry around for you, then you can go for the GX85, and then you compare that GX8 and the GH4 to your Canon or Nikon, and it's already much smaller. But it is a very small, lightweight camera. So again, it goes back to that whole travel and street photographer idea. The reason that it comes up as a street photographer's camera is because it's so small. It doesn't look like a big honking professional camera.
Right.
If you want to shoot on the street and be a bit more stealthy, be a bit quieter, it's a great camera for that. It's got the flip-up LCD. So instead of the full articulating out, which meant if you wanted to shoot at waist level, you kind of had this thing sticking out the side. Mm-hmm. This goes back to the old GX7 model of having an LCD that simply pops up, and it tilts down as well, but pops up instead of sliding out. So you can much more easily do that and more discreetly do that waist level photography.
Yeah. So one last question on positioning of this thing. Where, and I can't really get a feel for the size of it looking at the photo here. Where does it fit in terms of the what is it? So the GM5, which is their little tiny microscopic, almost Micro Four Thirds camera. That's a small guy, and then where does it fit? Is it like someone that's looking at the GM5, but they're like, I need something with 4K and a little bit bigger? Like,
the GM5 was pretty. GM5 is microscopic. That's a super tiny camera. It doesn't have that many buttons to program on it. It's lacking some of the key features and the faster autofocus. So this is more size-wise. It's more like the LX100. If this actually was probably a good comparison. Think of it like an LX100 with interchangeable lenses. If you're trying to compare it to.
Oh, perfect. Because I have an LX100 and I love that camera. Okay.
Yeah, it's a fantastic camera. So it's very similar to that as far as the size and the feel of it goes.
Okay, that puts it in perfect perspective, and it looks like it's a little bit cheaper too. It's $800.
Yeah, it takes the same battery as the LX100 did. So that's
excellent. So, did you get your situation worked out over there?
Is not running. So what we can do, since obviously we're going to edit this later, let's just say right now we're going to play the video. Boom.
There you go. Or we'll just, is that video on YouTube?
It is on YouTube, and so I've just lost control of my entire switching system because I can't log in. The system that I use to do my switching has crashed and will not boot up right now.
No worries, no worries. We'll embed it in the page for this episode. So
actually, hold on a second. I might actually.
Uh-oh.
Tell me momentarily here.
It's Bruce Wayne at work. Look at him. Problems.
All right, here I need to pull up something for you to look at so we can verify if I'm switching screens or not. Just a stupid photo. Okay, tell me if. Yep, that would.
Yes.
Great.
We see a photo.
Okay, good. So we can do this. Let's go back and get the video up.
All right, and for you folks that are listening to the audio feed, apologies. If you want to watch this video that Joseph's about to see, just head over to thisweekinphoto.com and come to episode 460. That's where this video lives.
That's right, absolutely. And you'll still, even without seeing it, you'll hear a lot. But okay, so now that I know I can play the video, let me build up the video what this is. So
okay, go for it.
For every major camera launch that Panasonic does, they create a couple of marketing videos around it. And one of those is called the Impressions video. And the idea behind the Impressions video is you have a crew working with a photographer, filming that photographer shooting with this new camera, and then it's accompanied by so you'll see in the video, you see the photographer shooting, you see some of the footage the photographer shot, and then a voiceover from the photographer talking about what they, their experiences, their impressions of the camera. So Panasonic asked me to do one of these, and they asked me to go take this camera to New Orleans, or Nolans.
No.
And I'd never been there before, which made this really cool for me to be able to do. So this is my project. I was the director and scriptwriter on this project. We had quite a significant crew on board. We had hired a producer, a DP, PA. We had a local fixer, and then locally here we had an editor, motion graphics, sound mixer, and a musician, all working together to create this project. So pretty robust project,
Nice.
And that's what it is. That's the lead up. Let's play this thing. Here we go.
Sweet.
Roll that beautiful beam footage.
When it comes to street photography, New Orleans is one of the greatest cities I've ever explored. So much color, so much history, so many amazing people.
Happy Tuesday!
What's not to love? I took the GX85 everywhere, wandering the streets, to restaurants, museums, even on a horse-drawn carriage, and I love how this camera performed. It's so compact that I could easily fit the camera and 2 or 3 lenses in my little camera bag. The flip-up LCD allowed me to shoot from waist level, and the built-in stabilization kept my video nice and smooth. One of the standout features in this new camera is that there's no anti-aliasing filter on the sensor. It turns out this makes for amazingly sharp photos, which became really obvious when I shot in black and white. On the other hand, the richness of colors in this new Lumix really blew me away. I met this wonderful artist called Frenchie, and he invited me into his studio to shoot him working. The phenomenal colors of his artwork look so incredible on the back of my camera, and those intense colors look exactly the same when shooting 4K video. I love shooting at night, but I don't like carrying a tripod, so the dual stabilization in the GX85, where the sensor and the lens move together to keep shots steady, was awesome, and allowed me to shoot handheld everywhere I went. Of course, not all photography is fast-paced, and taking time to explore the early morning light at the Beauregard Kai's house is a great example of that. Without a tripod, shooting handheld at a 20th of a second was easy, and my shots turned out perfectly sharp. I love food, so getting a few minutes to shoot in the kitchen of the famous Jacquemus restaurant was a blast. It's fast-paced, and I was always in the way. But one of the latest developments in photography that was incredibly useful in this situation is 4K photo mode, which basically lets me shoot 8-megapixel stills at 30 frames per second. Without a doubt, the highlight of my trip was seeing little Freddie King play the blues on a back porch in New Orleans. Everything came together here. The incredible colors that feel so right in this city. Jumping between video and stills by just pushing a different button. And of course, portraiture. My favorite moment and favorite photo from this visit is seen in this portrait. If if there is ever a character that sums up the soul of New Orleans, it's Little Freddie King.
Okay, bye-bye.
I'm Photo Joseph, photographic storyteller and Lumix luminary.
That is fantastic,
Awesome.
man. Congratulations.
Awesome.
That is, you know what I was thinking? Joseph needs his own television show. This is like Anthony Bourdain or something. It felt, it had that sort of,
Golden voice too.
it had that feel.
So the ending shot, we shot that about probably halfway through the production because we were shooting the sunrise over the city from across the river. And as we're packed up and we're leaving, and we see that really dark, just barely a little bit of light left on the horizon, the city lights are on, and I go, oh my God, this would be a great closing shot, right? Let's do this closing shot. And originally it was just me pick up the camera and put it down again, and then the DP goes, oh, you got to walk out. You do that, put it down, and walk out of camera. It'll be an Anthony Bourdain closing.
Perfect, and it works. I mean,
I
I got that right at the beginning. I mean, even your voice sounded very relaxed and Anthony Bourdain in a new city kind of thing. You should do that. That was really good. Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So one of the highlights of watching that video was watching it and watching Chris watch that video.
Did you see what was going on here? I was
I think I saw your mouth open a little millimeter wider.
Like,
Wait,
I
you can
think
do
I
stills
wanna
and
do
video
that.
at 8 megapixel still? What?
Oh my God, what's happening to me right now?
More confusion to the mix. Hey,
Inner conflict. It's
Oh,
bad.
that is cool, man. That was a really good video. And what was the video itself obviously wasn't shot on Lumix gear, but the interspersed video that you were shooting and showing was, right?
Right. Anything that didn't have me in it was shot with the GX85. The video that had me in it was shot on a GH4.
Oh, it was GH4. So the whole thing is Michael 4/3 then.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Yeah, that was shot on a GH4 on a handheld. I mean, obviously there's a lot of shots that are on sticks as well, but for the most part handheld with an Atomos Ninja Assassin. So we were capturing straight to the SSD card at 10-bit 422, which is phenomenal. And yeah, that's how it was all shot. And then
cool.
One of the things that there was kind of I'm getting more and more into video, obviously, and one of the things that we did on this production that I hadn't really worked with before was having a variable neutral density filter on the lens. So instead of having to change aperture to change your exposure, because your shutter speed's pretty well locked because you want that to have a consistent frame rate, consistent shutter speed for that same cinematic effect all the way through. Your ISO obviously can change, and you'll change that as you go, but you don't want to change it too much. And you don't want to change the aperture because you have a depth of field that you want for a particular shot. The variable ND allowed us to change the exposure smoothly, so you're not stepping from one aperture to another. You've got infinite variation as you just twist that variable ND and move between shots, or need to make it a little brighter, a little darker.
Interesting. So many little gadgets that I need. It's that smooth gradation of changing exposure over time. I found that on the DJI Osmo that I shoot, when you have it in auto mode obviously, but it does this. Other cameras obviously when they're in auto mode they'll change exposure as it since it changes in the lighting environment, but it also does that sort of smooth, almost human-like change of the exposure over time, so that it's almost imperceivable when you move from inside to outside. Normally it's like, oh, it's bright, and then it kind of cuts down and gives you. It's like you go outside. It's almost like it reacts almost like your eye reacts. So that's really cool.
Nice.
All right, Joseph. So that GX80 and GX85. We're gonna have to get those in the hands of Doug K and Gordon Lang.
Oh yeah.
Really So Panasonic, if you're listening, send them to Doug K and Gordon Lang. Let them put them through their paces. Just last question: the 80 and the 85. What are the differences between those two bodies?
Nothing. It's just a designation for different regions.
Oh, okay, good.
Which I don't understand. I mean, a lot of camera manufacturers do that. There's a different model number for different regions, and I don't know why. Apple doesn't do that, right? It's the iPhone 6 Plus, and it's the same iPhone 6 Plus everywhere. I don't know why there's a different designation, but
who knows? Lawyers. It's all lawyers.
Lawyers.
All right, guys. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about DJI and the fact that they just launched their first drone-based live stream on Facebook. All right, guys, we are back at the F8 conference for Facebook developers. Facebook opened up its Facebook live streaming API to developers, and guess who was first? DJI. They jumped on board to demonstrate it using a modified Phantom 4 drone. So essentially what this means is coming very soon to a drone near you, people will be able to fly their drones and transmit live footage or live stream that footage down to Facebook. This isn't new. So the drones themselves, in fact, my Phantom 3 is able to connect to YouTube and live stream to YouTube right now. So now Facebook is getting into the live streaming game, and of course DJI is capitalizing on that. Chris, you have a drone? Do you care about this?
I do care about this. I do. Like last time, in between drones, I actually sold my Inspire, and I'm hoping that there's an Inspire 2 that comes out, or I might just pick up a Phantom 4. I don't know. But I've owned 3DR Solos. I've built, flight test little kits and such. But this for me is a big deal. I'm a realtor here in Arizona, and I use drones to film. For products and all different
Not
kinds
for
of
commercial
stuff.
purposes. It's for your own personal.
This is for my own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the idea of being able to stream to Facebook is super cool. It's incredible. I can't help but to feel that Facebook is trying to move in on the YouTube stuff quite a bit, because video is like this hot thing. But I think this technology is blowing my mind these days. Blowing my mind.
Yeah, and it's easier. Like things like with the the Phantom 4. The one thing one of the things that the Phantom 3 is missing is obviously that object avoidance and collision detection avoidance, whatever system, so that it won't fly into walls and that sort of thing. But also the fact that you can have it do. Well, you can do this. You can do sort of these autonomous flight modes with the Phantom 3, where you can say, here's a point, orbit that point, or go along a line and keep your camera focused on that point. But they've upped the ante with the Phantom 4 to do that kind of thing. I think overlaying that with live streaming makes things a little bit interesting. The one thing that popped into my head when I was looking at this, like, yeah, that's cool, but what about audio?
Right, for sure.
What are all these drone flights going to be? Just
quiet, serene.
Or can I put a mic on my controller and narrate to Facebook while my pilot or while my aircraft is flying? Joseph, what do you think? I mean, did you think about that?
Yeah, because obviously you can't have the mic in the camera because all you hear is
right.
So, no, that's a very logical way to do it. Would be to have a mic on the controller that you can narrate. And then if you've got a mic input on the controller, at that point you could do anything. You could hook it up to a wireless lav and put somebody else out there. You could have someone who's standing on the cliff and they're talking into their mic on a wireless lav, and the drone's flying around them. And as long as the drone's far enough away, you don't hear it. Yeah, lots of options there.
Yeah, is this something you would use, Joseph, in your sort of day-to-day work? But last time we talked, if I remember, I got to call you out on this. You were like, I don't see a reason for drones in my work.
Well, no, I mean, I don't own a drone, and I am very unlikely to buy one, other than maybe get a little toy one to play with the kids. But because my photography is commercial. It's professional photography, and I can't use a drone for professional commercial work without an FAA license. And I've been approached many times by drone operators I don't want to call them operators, drone owners, who want me to hire them for productions. Great, show me your license. Oh, I don't have one. Why do you need that? That's stupid. You don't need that. You don't need it. Don't worry about it. You won't get caught. I'm sorry. This is my life. I'm not doing that.
Last words. Famous
and
last
actually
words.
do have a licensed drone operator here in town that I can work with. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully those laws will change soon, because it's there's a lot of video to be had. In fact, it was interesting because those rules are United States rules, right? So that's the FAA. And last week I spent the entire week in Mexico. where apparently the FAA
Doesn't exist.
doesn't reach. Not that I'm in no way an irresponsible drone pilot. I'm like all the rules. Actually, all the rules that are here, I just apply them to Mexico just because I don't know what their rules are. So I just say, I'm just gonna apply. I'm gonna operate as if I'm in the United States, and I'm not only gonna stay under 400 feet. I'm not gonna fly over any lives. None of that stuff. So I was in nerd mode, and mostly I don't want my drone to be confiscated mode.
Right.
But that said, there are so many things that I feel like you can shoot down there that you can't. You get nervous shooting
Sure.
in the United States because of all this this legislation and
Right.
rules and all this stuff. So I don't know. I guess the takeaway is it's a big world. And it extends beyond the borders
Bigger than the U.S.
of the United States of America. It's a beautiful world out there. And Joseph will not be flying anytime soon. Joseph, you have to get one just to be, just to know. Come on.
I've got enough things to deal with.
Flying is fun, but it's easy for someone to jump on Amazon and spend $800 and get a Phantom 3 and fly it into somebody's house or something like that. So I mean, every time I've flown, I go into a public place, I find the nearest cop, and I say, hey, because they're there. I mean, the law, in the greater sense, isn't there. It's their judgment that's being factored into the decision making. So you just be intelligent and you be smart and use common sense. And literally, they say, hey, are you flying commercially? Yes or no? Is this for personal use? Yes or no? You don't care what you do. Don't hit a power line, don't hit a person, and don't hit property. And that's at least for Arizona. But the object avoidance stuff, in a way, I mean, I like it. However, I like flying. Like, I like controlling a craft. So I don't really, I wouldn't use it a terrible amount unless maybe I was flying far away, which in that sense you shouldn't be. You should be line of sight.
In some of those modes, it doesn't care. It's like an airbag in your car, right? You can't get in your car and say, I'm not going to use airbags today.
Use you, right?
I know how to drive. I don't need this stinking airbag. I'm going to turn it off. It's just going to be there if your drone goes, you lose signal or it runs out of battery and decides it needs to return home. Instead of doing a beeline straight home, it's going to avoid stuff on its way there or just put itself down if it can't do that. So, yeah, I know, I hear you. And that's part of the reason why I haven't upgraded my Phantom 3 to a Phantom 4 yet, is because the Phantom 3, quote, is harder to fly, which is, relatively speaking, with all that space-age technology in there. And I want to learn how to fly the thing before it's like I want to learn how to drive a stick. You should learn how to drive a stick before you get an automatic. Right? So you know how everything operates, and I feel like the Phantom 3 is the stick shift of drones.
Well, like Joseph said, just get one of those little ones to fly around with the kids. I mean, that's really how I started to learn. I got those little...
Those are impossible to fly. Those are
exactly.
They're so hard to fly.
When I started building them, I was like, wow, this is so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So who was it? Eric Chang told me to get one of those. In fact, I read his book, and in his book he says, before you get the big drone, get one of these little ones and fly that around. Yep. And I told him when I got that little one and was trying to fly it around the house and I take it outside, I'm like, it was almost a discouraging factor for me getting the big drone. It's like if this little cheap thing is this hard to fly, there's no way I'm spending $1,200 to crash it like I'm crashing this little thing. But it turns out it's the reverse.
Right. The one I've ever had is a cheap little like Radio Shack $40 thing or something like that, and it comes with do not fly this outdoors. Well, I can't fly it indoors because as soon as I turn it on, it goes straight up and hits the ceiling, falls to the floor, and that's the end of the flight.
Yep.
Exactly.
If your battery lasts that long.
Exactly. Yeah, but conversely, with the newer, more expensive drones like the Phantom 3, they've got the digital compass in there, the accelerometers, the GPS, and GLONASS tracking all that stuff. So they know how, even if you let go of the controllers, they fix themselves in 3D space and stay there. Even if the wind is blowing on them, they just stay there. Amazing. So they're easy to fly. Conversely, these little ones, they don't fix themselves in 3D space. You have to.
Nope.
You're the GPS and the digital
You're the GLONASS,
yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. So this live streaming stuff is interesting. Facebook is also doubling down, it seems, on this VR stuff. Like if you upload a 360-degree video into Facebook, it will recognize and decode it so that you can view it in 360. YouTube as well. So the two major players are building in these technologies so that we can do cool stuff. So I wanted to sort of segue this conversation into cool stuff. Joseph, starting with you. So looking at these new things that we can do, and put on your professional, you have clients, and put on that hat. Looking at all the cool stuff that we can do versus in the old days of shooting, quote, old days of just shooting video and stills. Now we have the ability to live stream to Facebook, create VR immersive experiences, do crazy things with audio that we couldn't do before. It just goes on and on and on. All these cool things that we can do. From a professional standpoint, do you see yourself adding these to your things I can do list or offerings to proposals that you present to clients?
Well, certainly drone photography or drone video, even though I won't be personally flying it, is absolutely something that I offer to my clients. And even on this Lumix video, had the budget been higher, we would have likely brought in a drone and dealt with all the permits and all to do that, because clearly there's no question that footage shot that way is just phenomenal. It's just so cool. It looks so beautiful. So yeah, why wouldn't we add that in? But it costs money. It costs the cost of renting the drone. It costs the drone operator. It costs all the permits and everything else. So it adds to the budget, and budgets are finite, and you got to do with what you can.
Yeah.
But offering it, absolutely 100%. It's something that I definitely want to be able to do. I do offer, so I just don't do it myself.
Yeah.
And as far as the live streaming, I haven't done any live streaming stuff for clients, but as you know, of course, I do a lot of live streaming on my own. That's what this whole production studio that we're looking at now is for. And so I'm doing it from a training perspective, but I absolutely do the live streaming, and I can do chats, live chat on the side, and I can do Skype interviews, and I can do call-ins, Skype call-ins during the live show, and all of that is set up now to be able to do it. So all those little bits of technology are absolutely getting played into my day-to-day professional work. I don't have a drone flying here to do it, but you could.
So basically, so you have the massive front end there of all that gear, and you are set up to live stream right now. So with this new Facebook live streaming service that they're building in now, you can plug into that if you wanted to and just kick off a live stream from Photo Joseph headquarters there and stream to Facebook, right?
Yeah, and it's something I'll definitely be looking at, because right now I pay for a streaming service, and I pay a monthly fee for that, and I don't use YouTube Live because of the latency. So there's a 30-odd second latency on YouTube Live, which makes it very difficult to do any kind of text chatting, because if someone asks a question in text chat and I see that and respond to it, it's 30 seconds later, and then if I have a follow-up question, or they have a follow-up question, then that's 30 seconds. It's too long. It doesn't work. It needs to be closer to real time. So the system that I have set up is only a couple seconds latency, so that works out great. But I have to pay for it. It's not free. Right. Facebook, and I'll take a look at it. Obviously, Facebook has a whole discovery feature, right? The fact that it's on your Facebook feed means it's discoverable. More people are likely to go, oh, what's going on? Click on it and join the show, which is phenomenal.
It's like Periscope kind of, and it's also, as I was reading and researching it, you can create a stream for a Facebook group. So you can do a private stream just for members of a particular group, which has really interesting implications for, say, the TWiP Facebook group. We could do a stream just for people that are members of our TWiP Facebook group, and make that exclusive to those folks instead of having the entire world in there. And the cool thing about the Facebook thing, much like Periscope, or maybe it's different than Periscope, but you can, listeners can like and favorite, do all those little icons as you do in the normal Facebook feeds. You can do that live over the video as the video's playing, and then when the video replays later, those reactions to the video also get replayed, so you can kind of see how people were reacting. Chris, what about you? So Joseph represents the far right side, technologically speaking, not politically speaking. So, Chris is on the far left. All right, gentlemen, let's have a debate. So Chris, you're a self-admitted street photographer, looking at all and someone who said at the beginning of the show, you don't like messing with pixels after the fact.
Right.
No. in camera. How does that play into all these other technologies that are here and sitting on the table waiting for you to use? Do you care about them, or are you just like, I'm a purist?
It's all candy. It's all fun. You know, I like technology. I like having fun. I like mixing around. But to an extent, it would be kind of overkill. You know, if I do get into sharing and have a even greater following and things like that, and I go on adventures, which I have Iceland coming up, Cuba coming up, I would like to, you know, share those types of adventures. But I just get in this zone, you know, where I throw on my headphones, I put on some music, and I just go all over the place. So I think it would slow me down in a sense. But, you know, if I do, because sometimes I do bee capture for wedding photographers and things like that, that'd be something that I would do for like behind the scenes stuff, or, you know, things like that, is to capture, you know, what's going on. The drone stuff, I could see that being something that I incorporate, because I know with the Phantom 4, you know, you can do object tracking and things like that. And that thing goes like 30 or 45 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so if I'm in an open area and it's safe and I'm doing my street photography, then I can see streaming, you know, my own episode of Chris and wherever, you know, capturing a landscape or this or a street or that or the ocean or whatever. But yeah, I think for me, you know, my life is crazy enough anyway that I would keep it down to like one or two things and then really have fun with that.
Yeah, it's just cool. There's so many cool tools. In the announcement on Facebook's blog, they talked about the Osmo, which is this guy that I know and love. This little thing. So the Osmo, all of DJI's, you know, aircraft and handheld cameras, etc., run through their app, which is called the DJI Go app. So if you're flying a Phantom 4, Phantom 3, using the Osmo, the Inspire, it's the same app no matter what. So they said that they're upgrading the app to allow the app to connect to Facebook, you know, and live stream through Facebook, which means the Osmo, which is a handheld gimbal stabilized camera, will allow you to stream live to Facebook from your hand. So I think that stuff is cool. Like like Joseph, if you had one of these walk around New Orleans without that crew, then you could have still gotten some, you know, reasonably interesting footage walking around just handheld with man on camera, you know, and streaming directly to Facebook as part of that overall package that you presented Panasonic with. You know, obviously with the caveat that when you recorded that video, it was still super secret. But if it wasn't, you could have like said, hey, we're on the street here doing a video for Panasonic. Hey, come look behind the scenes of us making this thing, and had your Facebook followers see you live with a stabilized camera at. Because I know Joseph's aesthetic and attention to detail is up here, so the Osmo quality is probably the limit at which Joseph would tackle. So I don't know.
I have an Osmo. I got one on your recommendation, and I needed it for a commercial shoot that I did a few months ago now, and it's the only shoot that I've used it on. We did bring it to New Orleans, shot a little bit with it, but it didn't make it into the final cut. But no, it's an incredible camera, and yeah, the quality is good. It's obviously not as good as something like what you get off of GH4, but it's still very good, and you know, especially in the right lighting. You know, that's one of those where in good lighting it looks fantastic. You know, the lighting starts to go, the quality drops pretty quickly, but no, I mean, it's a fantastic device, and you know, I want to be as tool agnostic as I can. Obviously, shooting a project for Panasonic, we're shooting on the Panasonic gear, and not because we have to, but because it really was ideal for what we were doing. You know, you get that smaller, lightweight camera on a handheld rig shooting 4K straight into a Ninja Assassin and still hand-holding the whole thing. That's pretty awesome. Obviously, the Osmo is way lighter than that, way lighter, but I don't have the capture quality, I don't have the sensor size, I don't have the audio syncing with it. There's a lot of things that I don't get out of that. So, you know, but there are times we brought it because we might need it. If we wanted to go through a crowded street and have something really, really small, that was going to be what we'd use, but we ended up not using it.
Yeah. You could, I mean, what you could do with that same technology is you could use the X5, which is their 4/3 gimbal. You can mount it on an Osmo, and then you have the dynamic range, and you have the interchangeable lenses and things like that, the Olleys, the Panasonic lenses and such. So that would be awesome, really awesome.
Yeah, I never think about that.
Is that all the pieces for that aren't there yet, right? To put it on the handheld.
As far as I know, are they out?
Yeah, yeah. You can. There's two models of the Osmo, so you can get the Osmo. I don't know. I think it may be the same handle, but you can get the Osmo, which is what we have, Joseph,
Mhm.
and then the X5 version uses that mount. But obviously, you don't get the whole. It's a micro four thirds mount, but you don't get the whole breadth of micro four thirds lenses because it still
Right.
has to balance and all that.
Balance.
So it's the
Right, I think
shorter
it's
focal
what
length.
lenses that it's designed for now.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically the same lenses that'll work on an Inspire will work
Uh-huh.
on the
Right.
Osmo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, it's here now. I always forget about that for some reason. I forget that there is kind of a pro level Osmo that you could purchase right now.
I thought for some reason I thought that the X5 is available, of course, but
Hmm.
the connection between the X5 and the handle, I thought that's what was.
That was the delay. I think they need to beef up the mount or something. Because I
Oh,
think
then
when we were at
maybe I have it wrong.
WAAAY, I don't know if it was out then, but I haven't followed it since I let my Inspire One go.
Hmm.
But that opens up a
Yeah.
huge amount of creative possibilities with that,
Really?
just with that handle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
for
many
sure.
so many cool tools in it. Yeah, it becomes a like Chris, if you're a minimalist, it becomes like your own personal, I don't know, hell or whatever, because you have all
Yeah.
these different things that you
Just
could
choose
shoot with.
one, Chris. Just choose
Yeah,
it.
yeah. You can't. Sometimes it's better just to have one thing that you have to
Yep,
shoot with.
yep. Nailed it.
But
Exactly.
all right, guys, we're getting close to the end of the show here. Let's do our picks of the week. This is the segment where you guys, Chris, can pick something to recommend to the TWiP Army. It can be anything as
Uh-huh.
long as it is somehow related to photography. Chris, I'm gonna let you go first. What's your pick of the week?
Wow, as far as photography, I guess what I'm on right now is just modifying light,
Mm-hmm.
and using simple modifiers. And being in Arizona, um, I got to give it up to MagMod. I've been using MagMod stuff for creating different types of light, and they have this new product coming out where essentially it's a bunch of gobos, different gobos for their new light system, and they have this mag something or other that beams the light, mag beam or something, and
Mm-hmm.
that concentrates the light, and so
Oh,
those are
we
the
talked
things that
about that
I'm.
on TWiP. Listeners are gonna know.
Oh,
We talked about that because David Hobby
uh-huh,
called them out on that because
uh-huh,
they, in their marketing materials, they were making the claim that it increased the output from your
uh-huh,
illumination source, which is
uh-huh,
impossible. At least,
right.
maybe somewhere in the multiverse it's possible, but in this particular dimension, you can't
Or three,
you can't
that
really
works.
create something from nothing. So to their defense, they revised things and said, yeah, like you're saying, Chris, they focused the light
Right.
on a certain point, which thereby increases the amount of light falling on that. But
Yeah.
the way that it was written and the way that they had sold a lot, I think, a lot of money, in this
Yeah.
product was under the claim that it somehow increased the light output by a couple of stops from your device, which was,
Yeah.
as
Not
David
so
Hobby said, disingenuous.
bad. Well, for me, being like, photography is just is kind of an expression of what I want to do. I
Hmm.
can go do it solo. I can do it anytime I want. I can do it at night. I can do it in the morning, whenever, in between, at open houses or whatever. But the creative flexibility that the gobos are the main thing that I really like, because I don't work with assistants. I have two light stands that I barely use. So being able to go out and like throw light in different patterns without cutting through cardboard, which is what I've been doing.
That's awesome.
I cut through cardboard and like make slits for light and stuff like
See,
that. Their
you're
gobo
the
stuff is
antithesis
cool.
of Joseph Lemaschke. You're the
No,
complete
hey,
opposite.
no, remember I've got that DIY course on Linda, and we have a whole video on cutting out, making
Oh,
cookies.
that's
Oh,
right.
nice. I gotta go find that, because that's what, like, in my office at home, I just have like Amazon Prime boxes that that I've just cut in different sizes and different shapes and stuff, and I've been using that for gobos. But that is the thing that I'm on recently is the Magmod gobos that they have for their system. That's awesome. I'm excited about that.
Very cool. Perfect. And that, my friend, is your first pick of the week on This Week in Photo. So to live in infamy forever. So congratulations. Cool, man. Thanks for that. Joseph,
Thank you.
what about you, man? What is your pick of the week?
I've got a nice and inexpensive iOS app for you. That's my pick of the week. It's called Preset, and this is a bit of a segue to my show that we talked about at the top of the show, the new TWiP apps podcast that I'm doing, and this is an app that is featured on one of my first 3 podcasts. Actually, episode 3 it'll be. So the app is called Preset, and there you go. That's the one. It is an app where you can create your own recipes of filters, both for corrective and for creative use. And when you once you create a recipe, it's just really, really easy to apply that recipe to any number of photos. And you can obviously go back and edit your recipe and so on. So you can kind of make your own Instagram effect type filters if you want to look at it that way, without having to go through and rebuild the recipe every time. You just pull up a photo, tap it on, and apply it. It's pretty slick, and there's something about it, the way that you browse your library with the filters, that is really, really clever, and I don't want to give it away. It's something you got to watch the podcast to see, or obviously buy the app. So yeah, it is. It's pretty slick. It's only $2 right now. The developer is price experimenting. He's trying to figure out what the right price point for it is, and it's on across iOS, so on your iPhone or iPad, even iPad Pro. Apparently, I haven't put it on mine yet to double check that, but that's what the dev said. So yeah, it's called Preset app. If you look for it, you had it up on the screen there for a moment. If you're looking for it in the App Store, if you just type in Preset, you're going to find a lot of different things, because Preset's obviously very generic.
Yeah.
But we'll put a link in the show notes to take you right to it.
Absolutely. Cool.
Nice. Is that WAAAY Studios? Is that the one?
Rouse
Yeah.
Studio. Yeah, that's the one.
RAO Studios. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, I will download it. Thanks a lot, Joseph, for adding more stuff to my my phone that I'm trying to. I appreciate that. All right, guys, my pick is kind of related to photography, maybe because a photographer owns it, but it is it's this thing. You guys may have seen it. It's called the Amazon Tap. Have you heard of it?
Ooh.
So this is a little brother to Alexa, which is. I hope she's not hearing me because she's going to start talking. But it is the Alexa, which is Amazon's voice control kind of answer to Siri, which I think Apple should have made, but it works insanely well. This thing is essentially Alexa, but in a hold on, my phone's ringing. It's an edit point. So this thing.
Did you call Frederick? I couldn't quite.
I know. Like you didn't answer me from downstairs. I'm calling you. But it's basically Alexa, but it's in a portable Bluetooth speaker form that you can take with you with a rechargeable battery and a little stand that you stick it on, and it works just like Alexa. Only it's not voice activated. So that's why they call it a tap, because you have to press the speaker button, which is right here on the front, and ask it questions like. And for example, I took this to Mexico with me. You connect to the Wi-Fi at wherever establishment you're in, and you now have voice control. So I could say things like, let's see, what's the weather like in Cancun?
In Cancun, Mexico, it's 82 degrees with partly sunny skies.
Ooh.
You can look for mostly sunny weather with a high of 86 and a low of 76.
I need to go back to Mexico. but check this out. So I've got my house wired up to, and there's an Alexa downstairs. There's devices around the house that I can control the house through voice, and they also work through this. For example, my studio lights in my office right now are wired into Alexa, so I could say, "Turn the studio lights off."
Okay.
No, you didn't.
Yes.
No, you didn't.
Turn the studio lights on.
Okay.
You love her.
We are in a relationship right now.
Open the pod bay doors out.
So, man, dude, it is so cool, and you get so used to doing that. I have to press the button on the tap, obviously, but downstairs, it's all voice activated, so I can just say, "Hey Alexa, turn the lights on," and
So
boom, they come
that
on.
Philips lighting system that they have. Have you heard of that? It's the Hue.
Yeah, the Philips Hue. Yeah, Alexa works with that too.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
that would be awesome for a studio application for sure.
Totally.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, I've got.
Oh man, that's great.
What are you turning the lights on and off with? What do you have the lights plugged into that Alexa's controlling?
Right now I have a couple of Wemo controllers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it works reasonably well. I know there's like they work with a myriad of things like Smart Things and Philips Hue. It goes on and on and on. So I could literally wire up the entire house so that I could be opening the garage and it's I have Nest thermostats in the house, so I could say, "Alexa, set the upstairs temperature to 65 degrees," and she'll say,
You just
Okay.
set like 1,000 households to 65 degrees. Like,
Sorry.
you got to do the use a code word. We're not going to use the A name. We're going to call it Albert. Albert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. That's my pet peeve. That is my pet peeve about Alexa. is I wish I could change the name to something else. Like I wanna name my devices, I don't know, like Jarvis or something. You know?
That reminds me of the most recent Apple event where they were doing the Hey Siri, type of thing, and they had to speak with the delay so everyone's phones in the audience wouldn't go ding and just start talking.
Like you just did. You just
Yeah,
activated everyone's phone.
Everyone's phone is like going crazy right now. Sorry,
Hey,
internet.
It is the voice activation world we're in. But yeah, so this thing's cool, battery powered. When you're away from internet, it is essentially just a really cool Bluetooth speaker. So it loses its connectivity. You can't answer any questions or anything, but you can play music and all that stuff through it from your phone. Then when you get back to your hotel room, it has a little dock. You just put it on the dock. It's connected to your Wi-Fi, and now you can ask it questions, set alarms, everything that you could do with Alexa, you can do with this thing. Just you have to press the button. So
does that thing learn like other voice type of assistants? Does it learn your habits or start to kind of? Wow.
Yeah, it does.
That's
And
cool.
it sounds like an Alexa commercial, but you can set it up because it's an Amazon device, and obviously they want to sell you stuff. It's connected to your Amazon Prime account, and that includes all your Amazon Music and all that. So you can set up. Yeah, you can set up things to buy.
No.
Who's buying one right now?
No.
But you can set it up things that you buy over and over again. Like you could say, Alexa, buy laundry detergent. And she'll say, "Are you sure you want me to buy laundry detergent?" And you say, "Yes." And she's like, "Okay, I ordered it. It's coming."
Better talk to your wife, Christopher.
Yeah. But there's restrictions in there, too. You can set it in the Amazon app. You can say, require a passcode to authenticate purchases so you don't have people coming into your house buying stuff and all that.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool device. The Alexa system is one of the coolest devices that I've ever purchased, and I think, and that says a lot because I've purchased a lot of devices, and I think as I look at this thing, it seems like this is definitely something that Apple should have made and had Siri in to build into the house, especially with the watches and all this stuff. It seems like the personification of Siri should have been in here, but hey, more power to Amazon. They did it, and they hit it out of the park. I love it.
Nice.
So that's my pick of the week. Joseph, I know you're ordering a tap right now, aren't you?
I haven't got into it yet. I keep waiting for Siri to get better, and it is frustrating.
It's very frustrating. I haven't given up completely on Siri, but it's just when you use an Amazon device like the Tap or the Echo, the speed at which it recognizes your voice and the accuracy is spooky. You don't have to shout, you don't have to do all this stuff. You just say, hey Alexa, set an alarm for 6 o'clock, and she'll set the alarm for 6 o'clock. You don't have to tap dance or any of that stuff, and it just works. Conversely, with Siri, it's almost like working with Alexa is like walking through water. Working with Siri sometimes is like walking through syrup. It's more viscous. You got to give it a little more effort for her to get it. Sometimes she just directs you to the web for the answer. Whereas it's 99% out of the Alexa devices, I get the right answer right away and I'm on. So.
Yeah, it is the HomeKit connection. I don't know what's happening with HomeKit, but 2 years ago, HomeKit was the thing, and it's not connected to Wemo. It's not connected to Hue, unless you. Well, I guess now you can buy a new hub for Hue, and I suppose that works. But I want to be able to say, like you just did, the turn on the lights. I want to be able to say that turn on my coffee maker, which is connected to a Wemo device, and that isn't there, and it drives me nuts. So yeah, I do see this. I do see Echo, and I keep going, wow, it has the connections that I've got smart things. I've got Hue. I've got Wemo. I've got all these things, and this works on all of them.
It does. It does. Amazon is just they're crushing it with that stuff, and I don't know what Apple's doing. Yeah, you're right. HomeKit was supposed to be the promise. In fact, I heard rumors that the Apple TV 3 or the new Apple TV was supposed to have Siri built into it and sort of this omnipresent listening thing. I heard rumors to that, so that it would essentially be like an Alexa. that's what I thought, because it's already in your house, and you could say, hey, and then connect to the HomeKit systems and be the hub for HomeKit,
Right.
and that never materialized. So, I'm not
Yeah.
getting any younger, so.
I'm sure you have one. It's got Siri, and you can, you push and hold the button on the remote, and that works great for the TV stuff for the most part. But yeah, it doesn't do anything else. And yeah, sure, there were lots of rumors that it was going to be a HomeKit hub, and that obviously was either not true or just, it's still a secret, not out yet. But
Yeah. I mean, the remote, the Apple TV remote is fine. It's little and hard to. It's hard to find, and it's slippery, and it's black, and it just kind of gets in the couch cushions and all that. For this kind of stuff, once you try the omnipresent listening thing, and you're in your kitchen and you're cooking, you just say, hey, Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes, boom, and it's set. It's like having another set of hands in the house. You don't have to go find a remote and press and hope it understands you. It just adds a level of intelligence to my house, and it's not that expensive. Like the main Alexa device is $179 for all the stuff that it does, and then these come down from there. I think the Tap is less than that, and they've got a little one which is called the Amazon Dot, which is like Alexa but without the speaker part. So that's the one that you take and plug it into your stereo speakers, so Alexa is coming through the entire house or whatever. So yeah, so they're on it.
Yeah. For the set an alarm type of thing, I use my Apple Watch for that, and that does work reasonably well because I'm cooking, hands are dirty, obviously, and I can just say, hey Siri, yada yada, tell what to do, and that works out pretty good. Hey Siri, just woke up over here. Sorry.
Thank you.
Now you want to work, Siri. Oh, now you're listening.
But you were talking about the remote. I want to give you a little tip on that Apple remote because my biggest frustration with it was knowing which side is up.
Yes.
I'd always pick it up upside down. There's a wrist strap. Of course, it's probably like a $20 wrist strap or something, but it's a little wrist strap that plugs into the Lightning port.
Oh.
This is made by Apple. And so now you've got the wrist strap, so you always know what's bottom. You always know. It also makes it easier to grab. It's sitting on the couch. You just grab that little strap, and that's like the best addition to that.
Awesome. I'm ordering that today. 2 of them, at least. We're talking about this remote here. I forgot I had one here. So it plugs in right there?
Yep. There you go.
There you go.
Cool. All right, guys. We are at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. Do you guys have any big projects you want to let us know about, Joseph? What's coming up for you?
Well, so other than, of course, the TWiP Apps podcast, now that the broadcast studio is finally all in place, and it's one of these things. I mean, I know I've said on this show and many others that I'm about to start doing this, but this system, there's been a lot of pieces on this that have been an absolute nightmare, but it's finally all in place. Not for a lack of spending money. Turn this into a profit center because
Joseph, I want to add some salt in that wound. What you're building there is a really nice WordPress installation with a bunch of plugins that you're going to need to upgrade whenever they rev.
No. I don't know how well this will work. Let's see, because this isn't set up for the right thing. But if I do this, so I don't know if you could look at my screen, you'll see the 2 side by side there.
Look at that.
Yeah, and see, you're up there. So I could do the whole show like this, and as you guys talk back and forth, I'm always on screen. And that
is really cool. Look at that.
Well, I won't even tell you what it costs to get that up and running properly, but that is a huge part of what I've been trying to get right. So now that that's working, I have that. That's for the whole call-in, the whole Skype call-in. I can rearrange that however I like. I can do a little picture-in-picture, side-by-side, whatever. But all that switching is now in place. Anyway, so to answer the question, what's coming up? It's the live training Lightroom for Aperture users. That's what's about to start, and we're doing episode 1 of that this Friday. So yeah, we're finally doing this. I've been telling people for months I'm going to do it. The only reason I haven't was because I wanted to get this done properly, and now it's here, so I can do it.
So just you roll over that a little bit. So it's a live training. It's Lightroom for Aperture users. So it's a course that's going to help people that are in Aperture right now make the transition over to Lightroom.
Make the transition over, or even if you're already using Lightroom but you know Aperture really well, this will help you to go, oh, that's how this is done in Lightroom. Or here's how I work around this feature that's there, or flat out, you just can't do this in Lightroom, sorry. But then obviously here's something in Lightroom that didn't exist in Aperture, so there's some advantages too, of course. So that's what the course is designed for, and the way that we do the live training is I'll broadcast live, and that's free to watch. And then after the broadcast, you'll be able to purchase the download later, so you can.
So like the Creative Live model, sort of, right?
Very similar to that, yeah. It's the pricing is quite a bit cheaper because I sell each individual video, and we've been playing with the subscription model as well. That it probably won't be ready to go by Friday, but we're trying to get a subscription set up in the store so you can pay a monthly fee to have access to those videos at any time for free.
Cool.
So, or not for free.
That's
I
awesome.
know. Well, we'll tell the world about that because I know a ton of people that are in that refugee raft right now that are looking for the path of least resistance to moving into Lightroom. So that's
Yeah, and as I always say on my podcast on my site as well, I'm not by any stretch saying that Lightroom is what everybody should do.
Mhm.
Lightroom is the choice that I've made. There's a variety of reasons for that, but I've chosen to move to Lightroom, and I'm going to help people who want to make that transition into Lightroom because I can. There's certainly other options out there, and I'm not telling anybody that they shouldn't go there. I just am not doing the live training on it because I can't use every app to the extent that I use something like Lightroom or Aperture. I can't know them all that well. I'm also a working photographer, so there's only so much time I can spend on that.
Absolutely.
But we do have training on PhotoApps.expert for all those other apps as well. More and more tips keep coming in. Capture One is a big one. We get a lot of tips on Capture One in there.
Love it. Love it. Cool, man. That's great. Yeah, we'll definitely. TWiP will help you drive people over there, and it's just photoapps.expert/live, right?
That's right.
All right, cool. And what else you got? I see in the notes here you have the GX85 New Orleans video, so we'll put that we'll embed that in the blog post for the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Pretty cool.
Nice.
All right, Chris Berry, what about you? What do you
Yes,
have?
sir. I am going to be traveling a lot, as much as I can. I think I mentioned Iceland in August, which I'd missed the ticket window for Burning Man, which I usually would do, but Iceland is in the mix. And then trying to get into Cuba. A friend of mine is into drumming and traveling, and he's been to Cuba, and he's like, hey, man, you got to go. So I just want to get in front of a lot more scenes and just kind of change a little and add more a little bit to what I shoot. So traveling and kind of rounding myself out as a photographer and hobbyist is what I want to do next. So my projects are not so intense, but just kind of expanding a little bit in the container that I have right now. So
I love it. I love it. I hit that same epiphany moment a couple of years ago where imagine my position where I'm talking to people like Joseph and Doug Kay and Valerie and folks that are traveling the world getting these fantastic images, and I wasn't really traveling that much, right? So you get the realization that, hey, you have all this great gear, and you have to bite the bullet and get on a plane and go to where the images are. They're not going to come to you. So, that's like 60-70% of the battle is just taking yourself out of your comfort zone and plopping yourself down with your gear someplace to kind of ignite those creative juices and get you excited about getting cool shots. So yeah, bravo. Yeah, I'm still doing the same thing. Just came back from Mexico.
Yeah,
I'm heading to Cuba soon. There's another Vietnam trip. Yeah, so I am free to move about the planet now.
Yeah, we got to talk about Cuba. That could be a cool joint thing.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I'll tell you my details, and we can figure out what works. Cool. All right, guys. We are at the end of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsor, FreshBooks, for their support of the show. Also, be sure to visit our website at thisweekinphoto.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.